What's up, Summoners? Welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng, and we'll be talking about the top 10 mid laners so far in this preseason. Most of the champions on this list are really abusing the hell out of some very new items, but since this is the preseason, remember that we can see some very drastic buffs and nerfs at any time. So if you always want to be up to date on what's going to be OP and you're always in the know for Season 12, be sure you sub and turn on the notifications. We'll be starting things off with Viktor. When it comes time to choose a carry, there's generally a pretty good correlation between carry potential and risk. Hyper carries have 1v9 damage potential, but they also tend to have a lack of mobility and weaker early games. This means that you need to play really well to scale up and carry later. But sometimes, even if you play perfectly, there are some things that you just can't help, such as a jungler camping your lane or the enemy team diving you hard in a fight so you cannot get any peel. But with Viktor, you have a really self-sufficient hyper carry that can avoid a lot of those issues all on his own. He isn't necessarily a lane bully, but he's no pushover either. He has decent trading power, and once you get an augmented laser, you have really great wave clear, so you can go ahead and neutralize any tough matchups or jungle pressure. The combination of his Q's movement speed, W slow and stun field, and having access to items like Zhonya's, Cosmic Drive, and the insanely broken crown of the Shattered Queen makes him very safe to teamfight in the late game. On top of those items, Crown is definitely OP and should be abused when needed, but do keep in mind that if you're not dealing with major threats, it's still best to go for Ludens for max damage output. Whether you're trying to learn to abuse the broken champions on this list or how to deal with them when you end up on the wrong side of the matchup, if you really want to speed up the process, you should really check out ProGuides.com. We have courses from all your favorite streamers and pros like Core JJ, Aframu, and XSmithy to really help you understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized experience, we have coaches available 24/7, ready to help you become the best. Our coaches are top tier players that have spent years climbing the solo queue ladder to get where they are now, so they're ready to share everything that they've learned with you. So stop spinning the wheels on your own and get on the fast track to higher elo today. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? Our next OP mid laner is Kassadin. Like Viktor, Cass is another champion that scales insanely hard and is currently doing pretty well. His laning phase is just a bit too strong in my opinion. Against any AP champion, he wins trades with Q spam. What a lot of people don't understand is that Cass also does pretty well into most AD melee champions as well. You may think, oh, I'm bypassing his magic shield by counterpicking with Zed or Kiana. But when you go into trade with him, you learn that he hits insanely hard and will outtrade you at pretty much every stage of the game. Talon though, on the other hand, beats the crap out of him, so. With super strong laning, the only downside Cass really has is team fighting early on, when his long ult cooldown makes it pretty dangerous to rift into the enemy team's faces. So once you're done with the laning phase, stick to a side lane, at least until you reach level 11 and have 2 items. Then it's a bit safer to go for fights or at least the smaller skirmishes. But if the game is going smoothly, don't force things too hard. Play for that insanely OP level 16 power spike where your ultimate basically has no cooldown and then you'll be pretty much an unstoppable force. Next up we have Vex. Vex, being both a mix of burst mage and battle mage, has made her a strong pick since her semi-recent release. She has the range and wave clear to lane against other mages, and the trading power to easily deal with scary assassins. And to top things off, she's one of the few mages that can actually force teamfights thanks to her ultimate's ability to engage from a mile away. And that last part is what makes her an insane crown abuser. One big issue with Vex is that if you ulted into a fight and got immediately CC'd, sometimes you get blown up before you can even get off your combo and fear the enemy team. But with Crown giving you 75% damage reduction for a second and a half, you're pretty much guaranteed to survive long enough to get a full rotation of spells, setting up your team for an easily won fight. We don't have Zhonya's included in our build that we gave, but if you think you really need that extra safety from it, go ahead and replace either Shadow Flame or Horizon Focus with it. Now let's talk about Yone. The stats don't really show how OP he is, but there's a pretty good explanation for that. I don't like to overgeneralize, but I think that we know there's a pretty big demographic of people out there that plays certain edgy champions like Yone, Yasuo, and Draven that no one really likes to play with. Hi, that's me. I'm in that demographic. They type like the only language they ever learned is Twitch chat, spamming whatever flavor of the month word streamers have been using, and after dying once, they're ready to open. But when you put a player that actually knows how to function like a normal human being on Yone, the champion is insanely strong. Yone doesn't have to win lane to be a hard carry. In fact, you don't even have to go even. I recently had a game where I went from 0 to 4 to 8 and 5 just because Yone spikes so hard on 2 items for some reason. So as long as you keep a level head and focus on scaling, you'll become a 1v9 machine for pretty much no reason. If you want a super safe, reliable pick for mid lane, Lux is probably the champion for you. She's what we call a neutralizer. No opponent can really go in on you as Lux. If they try, you're able to just Q them and walk away. Since they can't go in, they're forced to deal with their constant E-spam as they try to farm, and eventually you just poke them out of lane. The one exception is Fizz. I highly recommend banning him if you're gonna be maining Lux. 1v1 aside, she's also a pretty strong skirmisher, thanks to her having both CC and burst. So as long as you can land your Q, you'll win most 2v2s with your jungler. Once you make it out of the laning phase, your primary goal is to look for picks around the objectives and when sieging. Lux does this exceptionally well, and you can just fish for Qs from a safe distance, and even if you miss 20 in a row, once one does connect, it's basically a guaranteed kill on any squishy target. Personally, I feel like Lux has been almost too OP since the buffs that she got. Don't get me wrong, I like playing her, so I'm definitely abusing her as a mid laner, but a champion shouldn't simultaneously be so safe, easy, and just able to one-shot half the enemy team from across the screen. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What are some other really strong carries that feel impossible to punish? Low risk, high reward is always a bit of an oopsie imbalance, so let us know what else you find falls into this category down in the comments. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? Twisted Fate has been one of the most popular champions in high elo for several patches in a row now, and for a good reason. Mechanically speaking, he's one of the easiest champions in the game. The hardest part is making sure you don't pull a blue card when you really need that stun, and that really isn't rocket science. What makes TF so broken right now is how much pressure he puts on the map and how much of a macro advantage this gives your team. And since most players at the top of the ladder have pretty damn good macro, it's easy to see why he's such a popular pick up there. You're able to constantly punish overextensions and bad rotations, which usually leads to free turrets and dragons and a constantly snowballing lead. So if you play your cards right, you'll probably get that victory. So as far as builds go, don't feel too limited to go for the one that we gave. It's definitely the more standard option, but there are a lot of ways to play TF. For example, Electrocute is a good keystone for just bursting down targets when fed, or you can go ahead and run Predator and just look to roam constantly, like the TFs in high elo Korean solo queue. In case you can't tell so far, mages are looking pretty strong in this season, and our next pick, Anivia, is no exception to that. She's one of the most consistent champions that you can pick. She isn't really able to be a proactive laner or anything, since shooting out Qs to leave you open to being attacked. Instead, you should almost always play reactively early. Wait for your opponents to make a move and then respond with your Q, E, auto combo to proc Electrocute, and then just flap back to safety. Your wall provides an extra safety net against overzealous opponents. And then once you hit level 6, you become the world's most boring champion to lane against. Anivia's ability to instantly clear wave after she gets her ultimate makes her the best option for neutralizing mid lane. From this point on, as long as you have your tier, lost chapter, and hopefully a blue buff, you can play the rest of the laning phase without having to interact with your opponent once. This allows you to safely farm up and become one of, if not the best team fighting control mages in the game. Like any other mage, feel free to go crown at any time that you feel that you need that extra safety in team fights. Now, we have one of the longest standing members of our super OP but no one plays them list, Zilean. Maybe it's because he's a champion that basically solely exists to enable the rest of his team, but for some reason, he's just a criminally underplayed champion. But whatever the reasoning behind it, people need to get over it. Zilean is an insanely busted champion, and he takes no effort to climb with. The first few levels he basically does nothing but last hit, but once you have a little bit of AP and some points in your queue, you can actually do some pretty nasty damage. While you'll rarely get any solo takedowns, if you can work with your jungler, you can quickly take over the game. Honestly, I can go on and on, but there's probably a zillion reasons to play him. No, okay, there's no time for that. Anyway, landing that sick 3-man double bomb on the enemy backline may look sick, but finding those opportunities is quite rare. Instead, focus on sending your divers into the fray and helping your backline carries kite in and out of the team fight with your E. The last two picks on our list are champions that do insanely well in high elo Korean solo queue, but kind of fall flat elsewhere. They're both pretty hard to play well mechanically and requires a pretty thorough understanding of how to 5v5 in different situations. As a result, they aren't something that everybody will have success with, but if you're trying to put in the time and effort, you can easily be a wrecking ball once you hone your skills on them. The first one of those two picks is Kiana. Outside of the very highest level of play, her stats range from being really bad to meh, but in the right hands, she's insanely broken. Whether it's the perma stealth or the lightning fast burst combos or the potential to simultaneously nuke the entire enemy team while clumping them up and stunning them for your team to wombo, Kiana's kit is just super OP. But like I said before, she's pretty difficult to play, so you just really want to put in the time and hours into learning her combos. And even then, you aren't suddenly gonna hit Challenger. A lot of success with Kiana hinges on you also having to have good macro and knowing when and where to roam, and the ability to find good windows to actually go in and make a play. If you can get all of that down and do it consistently, then you have a really good shot at climbing pretty high with her. As far as her items go, Yumu's Ghostblade is generally the go-to second item. But if you're playing to roam and gank a lot, I definitely recommend something like Axiom's Arc. That item is straight up broken. The other mid laners that's kind of meh in general but is really popping off in high elo Korea is Sylas. Sylas is one of those champions that is really going to be better at higher levels of play, since higher ranked players are generally going to be having better game knowledge and therefore will know how and when to use different enemy ultimates in fights. But he's never seemed quite OP as he does right now. He's one of the most picked champions with over 12% play rate in Mastered plus Korea, with his win rate being right under 59%. Those are insane stats. And what's really interesting is that he's not only just abusing any of the new items. His build is pretty much the same as it's always been, though Cosmic Drive did get a mini revamp. That being said, there will be occasional games where Crown may be a good pickup, like if you're gonna be engaging with a Stolen Malphite ultimate. And that's it for our top 10 mids for the preseason. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides, and that way you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember to let us know what some low risk, high reward champions are down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can go ahead and discuss League further or just hang out and be a part of the community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.